The Batman. On June 28, 2008, 17-year-old Asia Ferguson visited Six Flags over Georgia with his family and church group. The Batman was an inverted roller coaster. Passengers' legs dangled below the track. During his ride, Ferguson's hat flew off his head. After the ride ended, he went to retrieve it. The hat had landed in a restricted area beneath the tracks. Warning signs marked the zone as off-limits. Ferguson climbed over two 6-foot fences to reach the area. As he searched below, another train approached on the track above him. The train was traveling at 50 miles per hour. A passenger's dangling foot struck Ferguson in the head. The impact was instant. Ferguson was decapitated. Witnesses saw the collision. The train continued to the station while Ferguson's body lay below. Six Flags temporarily closed the Batman ride. It reopened the following day. The park added security around restricted areas and more warning signs. Ferguson's death became one of the most graphic roller coaster fatalities in recent years. The Big Dipper. On May 30th, 1972, a warm Tuesday afternoon in London, schools had just broken up for half-term. Battery funfair was packed. The Big Dipper was a wooden roller coaster operating since 1951. 3 cars were connected by a steel cable. The cable pulled the cars up a steep incline, then gravity did the rest. Around 2:30 p.m., 31 passengers climbed aboard, mostly children and teenagers. At the front rode a brakeman. His job was to control the brakes. The train began its climb. Then the haulage rope snapped. The train hesitated at the top, then started rolling backward. The brakeman lunged for the brake lever. Nothing happened. The brake system did not respond. Safety devices that should have stopped a rollback were missing or broken. As the train gained speed, it hit the curve at the bottom at full velocity. The wooden track couldn't handle the force. The first car jumped the rails, it smashed through the platform barrier and plunged 15 feet. The other 2 cars followed. Passengers were thrown from their seats. When the chaos ended, 5 children were dead. 13 others were seriously injured. Later, a 15-year-old girl who had survived the crash was standing on a wooden walkway. The platform collapsed beneath her feet. She fell and died moments later. The subsequent investigation revealed 66 safety violations. The rope was in poor condition. Most safety devices were missing or broken. Investigators found employees had been drinking and using drugs while working. The ride's manager and engineer were later acquitted of manslaughter charges. The Big Dipper was torn down. Battery funfair closed by 1974. Britain brought fairgrounds under new safety laws after the incident. The Shockwave. On August 23, 1999, 20-year-old Timothy Fan visited King's Dominion with a friend. The Shockwave was a stand-up roller coaster. Passengers stood upright, secured by shoulder harnesses and waist bars. Fan boarded the 6-car train. As the train climbed the lift hill and began its descent, witnesses noticed something wrong. Fan was wiggling and struggling against his restraints. He worked one arm free from the shoulder harness. His body contorted sideways as the train gained speed through the course. Near the end, the coaster entered a 180-degree curve. The forces proved too powerful. Fan was violently ejected from the train. He was thrown 40 feet onto a catwalk beside the tracks. Fan died instantly from head trauma. When the train returned to the station, Fan's restraints were still locked. He had deliberately worked himself free during the ride. The Shockwave reopened 3 days later. The Mindbender. On June 14, 1986, the West Edmonton Mall in Alberta was packed with visitors. The mall housed an indoor amusement park. The Mindbender was a triple-loop steel roller coaster. The ride had 4 cars connected in a train. It reached speeds of 60 miles per hour and ran through 3 loops. The ride had passed a safety inspection the day before. That evening, Rod Chico and 3 friends climbed into the last car. The train launched and completed the first 2 loops. As it entered the 3rd loop, 4 cap screws in the wheel assembly failed. The last car began to fishtail wildly. The wheel detached from the track. The car derailed completely. The lap bar restraints unlocked. All 4 passengers were ejected 30 feet to the concrete floor below. The train, slowed by the derailment, rolled backward and crashed into a concrete support pillar. Rescuers found 3 passengers dead. Rod Chico survived but was critically injured. Both his legs were shattered. Ribs, shoulder, pelvis, and lower back were broken. His body was folded in half from the impact. He spent months learning to walk again. The investigation found design flaws in the wheel assembly and inadequate maintenance. The cap screws had worked loose over time. The Mindbender was closed for months while engineers redesigned the system. When it reopened, anti-rollback devices were installed. Seatbelts were added. The train size was reduced from 4 cars to 3. The accident became Canada's worst roller coaster disaster. The Big Dipper 2. On July 24, 1930, a hot summer day in Omaha, Nebraska, Krug Park was packed with visitors. The Big Dipper was a wooden roller coaster. 4 cars were connected in a train. The ride pulled passengers up the first hill. Then gravity did the rest. That afternoon, 23 passengers filled the 4 cars. Among them were Gladys Lundgren, C.H. Stout, Anthony Politica, and 15-year-old Ruth Frell. The train began its climb. Then a bolt in the brake mechanism worked loose and jammed one of the wheels. The first car jumped the track. It broke through the guardrail and plunged 35 feet to the ground. The other 3 cars were dragged off behind it. Passengers were thrown from their seats or crushed beneath the derailed cars. The impact was devastating. 4 people were dead, and 19 others were seriously injured. A crowd of spectators surged forward. They blocked emergency access. Ambulances arrived but couldn't reach the victims. Police had to break down sections of the park fence to create routes for medical personnel. The investigation found the loose bolt caused the wheel to lock up. That forced the car off the rails. Krug Park never recovered. Attendance dropped and the park closed by 1940. The city of Omaha banned roller coasters for years afterwards. The site was later converted into a public park with no rides. The Big Dipper accident became known as the deadliest roller coaster disaster in U.S. history at that time. The Matterhorn Bobsleds. On January 3, 1984, 48-year-old Dolly Young visited Disneyland with 5 friends. The Matterhorn Bobsleds use small sleds traveling through an artificial mountain at 43 miles per hour. Young sat alone in her sled. Her friends rode the parallel track. Partway through the ride, Young fell from her bobsled onto the tracks. An oncoming sled approached on the parallel track. The family inside thought the figure on the tracks was a dummy. The bobsled struck Young at full speed. She was decapitated instantly. The father in the oncoming sled screamed at his daughters to close their eyes as their sled passed over Young's body. Ride operators shut down the attraction when Young's empty sled arrived at the station. Young was pronounced dead at the scene. Her safety restraint was found fastened on a neighboring seat. The Matterhorn reopened the next day. Disney made undisclosed modifications to the ride. The Wild Wonder. On August 28, 1999, Kimberly Bailey and her 8-year-old daughter Jessica visited Gillian's Wonderland Pier in Ocean City, New Jersey. The Wild Wonder was a small steel roller coaster. Individual cars were pulled up a 40-foot incline before rolling through the course. Bailey and Jessica climbed into one of the cars. As their car neared the top of the lift hill, the anti-rollback mechanism failed. The car lost contact with the lift chain and began rolling backwards down the incline. The car gained speed as it hurtled toward the station. It crashed violently into the loading area at the bottom. Bailey and Jessica were thrown from the car. Both died instantly. The park had replaced the coaster's anti-rollback device with an unapproved locally made part. The faulty component failed to engage. The Wild Wonder was shut down and removed. New Jersey upgraded regulations to require manufacturer-approved parts only. The Derby Racer. In 1911, the Derby Racer opened at River Beach, Massachusetts. It featured 2 parallel tracks where trains raced in a figure-8 pattern. The ride had no restraints and no speed controls. Passengers simply held on as the trains raced around curves and hills. Within weeks of opening, disaster struck. A man was thrown from his car during a turn and died. Later that year, the company's treasurer was killed. He had stood up in his car to lecture passengers about safety. He was ejected from the ride and died. Authorities closed the coaster and demanded safety improvements. Owners installed primitive brakes and lap bars before reopening. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, hit that like button. And if you want to see more, consider subscribing.